Once that is done, it's time to actually start speaking. Hey everyone, welcome to another Wednesday with me, Teacher Amy. Today I am talking about my 4 biggest tips for improving your conversational English. Speaking is by far the hardest skill to learn, and that's because it requires very quick thinking, and it also requires you to produce language. Whereas when we're listening, we can just, kind of get a little bit of sense. We don't always have to understand everything that someone says, but with speaking, we are 100% responsible for everything. A couple weeks ago, I talked about overcoming the fear of speaking. Once that is done, it's time to actually start speaking and to learn how to improve our speaking in a quick and efficient way. So, here are my 4 favorite tips to improve your conversational English. Tip number 1 is to focus on high-frequency conversations. When we talk about learning vocabulary, you will often hear people say, okay, well, I want to learn the high-frequency words first. Or you'll hear advice that says, here, study these words first because people use them more often. Well, the same thing applies to conversation. You can also focus on high-frequency conversations. And those are the conversations that you have a lot. Which conversations are high frequency for you might be different than someone else. So this is where, again, you really need to think about your own goals and why you're learning English. If you know that you want to get a better job, then I recommend looking at those conversations you're going to have in that job. What kind of things will you need to talk about day to day? If you want English in order to travel, then practice travel conversations. Practice ordering from a restaurant or talking to staff at a hotel or whatever it is that you want to do. If you don't know how to practice these conversations, go online and just do a Google search. If you search for practice dialogue, ordering pizza, you're going to find it. So just find some practice conversations that you can maybe do with a partner or with yourself in a mirror. Tip number 2 is to listen to a lot of natural conversations. This makes total sense because when you're in a conversation, that's not just one-sided. It's not just me speaking to someone else. It also involves me listening to that person and understanding and responding. So one way to practice that is just to do a lot of it. And I would choose, when you're doing this practice, I would choose to listen particularly to things like interviews, where 2 people are speaking naturally with each other, or some casual conversation, something that's not scripted. Along with listening, another thing that you can do at the same time is repeating, imitating. When you hear something said an interesting way, or you have trouble with some pronunciation of something, try to just imitate it. So play it back over and over again and keep saying it. Keep repeating until you are at the same rhythm and the same speed as the person you're listening to. Tip number 3 is to find a conversation partner. And I know what you might be thinking. Okay, that's great. I know I need to speak to someone, but who the heck am I going to speak to? And I hear that a lot because some people feel like they really need a native speaker in order to practice conversation. And That's just not true. Sure, maybe having a conversation with a native speaker is going to help you more when it comes to especially listening, but you can learn a lot and you can practice really well with someone who is not a native speaker. Look, I know this works because I have seen it work. I have a class of in-person students, and what I do with them is I put them in groups all the time. They are constantly speaking with each other, and these are intermediate students. Their English is not, it's good, but it's not great. So even in those groups, what I have seen is real growth when it comes to speaking and conversation. Now their muscles are used to producing those sounds. Even if they weren't doing it with a native speaker, they're still working the muscles. They're still developing those sentences, and that is worth a lot. So if you can't find a native speaker to speak to, just speak to anyone who wants to practice English. And tip number 4, if you really want to get a lot of practice with native speakers and just in general, one thing you should do, or I recommend that you do, is find communities of English speakers. So what do I mean by that? This looks different depending on who you are and where you are. If you are a non-native English speaker in an English-speaking country, some things that you can do are volunteer. Go volunteer at a food bank, or find a club, take a class. Get involved in communities that really interest you. If you're not living in an English speaking country and you are not surrounded by English speakers, maybe you are totally isolated somewhere where people just aren't speaking English that often. One thing you can do is you can find communities online. This is one of the great things about the internet now, right? Is that you can connect with anyone anywhere. For example, I am an ESL teacher in North Carolina and I'm teaching you English. So you can use that to find communities of people who have common interests. Do you like food? Do you like brewing beer? Do you like to knit? There are people who speak English who like those things too. So if you can find a group that can motivate you not only with English, but also with something else that you're interested in, that will help you a lot. The other thing it will help you do is develop vocabulary to talk about things that make you feel good, that give you motivation, that make you feel passionate. If you struggle to speak English because you're scared, then please see my other video that I published a couple weeks ago about overcoming the fear of speaking in English. If you would like to support me in free English lessons, then don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel and find me on TikTok and Instagram and now on HelloTalk. See you next time.